There was once a time when listening was considered a form of wisdom, not just a social skill. In many ancient and indigenous traditions, a person was not respected simply because they spoke confidently or expressed themselves loudly. They were respected because they knew how to listen, deeply, patiently, and without rushing to interrupt reality with their own opinions. But somewhere along the way, modern life began to confuse communication with constant expression. Speaking became more valued than observing. Responding became more important than understanding. And slowly, the power of listening began to disappear beneath noise, speed, and endless reaction. Today, people hear more words than ever before, yet truly listening has become rare. Because listening is not the same as hearing. Hearing happens automatically. Listening requires presence. To truly listen means giving full attention without immediately preparing a response. It means allowing another person, another experience, or even nature itself to reveal meaning before rushing to interpret it. And that kind of attention has become difficult in a world trained for distraction. Modern communication often moves too quickly for listening to fully happen. Conversations overlap. Reactions come instantly. People speak while already planning what they will say next. And in that constant movement, something important is lost: understanding. The elders understood this long ago. They recognized that understanding cannot form properly when attention is divided. If the mind is busy reacting, defending, comparing, or preparing to speak, then it is no longer fully observing what is actually happening. And observation is the foundation of wisdom. This is why many traditional teachings placed great value on silence before speech. Not because silence itself was superior, but because silence creates space for listening, and listening allows reality to be experienced more clearly before being shaped into language. In nature, this principle is everywhere. The forest does not interrupt itself. Rivers do not rush to explain their movement. Animals survive because they pay attention to subtle signals in their environment. Listening, in nature, is directly connected to awareness. But humans often separate themselves from this instinct through constant mental noise. The mind becomes so occupied with internal dialogue that it loses sensitivity to what exists outside of it. And over time, this creates a strange condition where people are constantly communicating, yet rarely feeling understood. Because understanding requires more than words. It requires attention. And attention is becoming one of the rarest things in modern life. The ancient teaching of listening was never just about conversation. It was about relationship with reality itself. Listening to the environment, listening to patterns, listening to consequences, listening to silence, listening even to emotions before reacting to them. Because when a person truly listens, something changes in perception. They stop forcing meaning onto everything immediately. They begin to notice details they previously missed. Tone becomes clearer. Intention becomes visible. Patterns begin to connect. And this deeper level of perception creates wisdom naturally, not through memorization, but through direct observation. The problem is that listening requires patience, and patience has become uncomfortable for many people. Modern systems reward speed, fast responses, quick opinions, immediate reactions. But wisdom rarely appears instantly. Understanding unfolds gradually through sustained attention. This is why elders often spoke slowly and listened longer. They were not trying to dominate conversation. They were observing beyond the surface. They understood that what a person says is only part of communication. Sometimes what is not said reveals even more. And silence plays an important role in this. Silence is not empty space between words. It is where meaning settles. Without silence, communication becomes crowded. But with silence, understanding has room to deepen. This is why people who truly listen often appear calmer. Their attention is not fragmented by the need to constantly respond. They allow reality to arrive fully before reacting to it. And because of this, their words tend to carry more weight when they finally speak. The elders knew that listening changes not only relationships with others, but relationships with oneself. Because a person who cannot listen externally often struggles to listen internally as well. Thoughts become reactive. Emotions become overwhelming. Patterns repeat unnoticed. But when listening deepens, awareness deepens with it, and awareness creates clarity. This is also why modern life can feel so mentally exhausting. People are surrounded by information, opinions, notifications, and constant stimulation. But very little space exists for quiet attention. Everything competes for focus, and the nervous system becomes overloaded by continuous input without enough time to process it. Listening slows this process down. It restores attention to the present moment instead of scattering it across endless distractions. It allows the mind to absorb instead of constantly projecting. And in that absorption, understanding becomes more stable. The ancient teaching of listening was never passive. It was one of the most active forms of awareness a person could practice. Because to listen deeply means setting aside ego temporarily. It means releasing the need to immediately prove, defend, or explain. It means becoming available to what is actually there instead of what the mind expects to hear. And that is difficult. But it is also transformative. Because the more deeply a person listens, the more connected they become to people, to nature, to themselves, and to reality beyond surface appearance. This is why the power of listening was never truly lost. It was simply buried beneath distraction. And once distraction quiets, listening returns naturally, not as technique, but as awareness itself. The elders understood that wisdom does not come from speaking the most. It comes from understanding the most. And understanding begins with listening. Not partial listening, not reactive listening, but full attention without interruption. Because sometimes the deepest truths are not hidden by complexity. They are hidden by noise. And listening is what allows them to finally be heard. And perhaps this is why truly listened to conversations feel so rare and memorable, because most people are waiting for their turn to speak, while very few are fully present enough to receive what is being said. But when someone genuinely listens, without interruption or judgment, something changes instantly. Trust appears, clarity increases. Even emotions begin to settle because they are finally being acknowledged instead of rushed past. The elders understood that listening was not weakness. It was strength through awareness. A person who listens carefully notices things others miss. Patterns in behavior, changes in tone, small truths hidden beneath surface words. And over time, this ability creates deeper understanding than constant talking ever could. This is why wisdom traditions often valued calm observation over quick reaction. Because reacting quickly may satisfy the ego, but listening deeply strengthens perception, and perception shapes every decision a person makes. The modern world may continue becoming louder, faster, and more distracted. But the ancient teaching remains unchanged. The more noise controls attention, the harder it becomes to understand life clearly. And the more deeply a person learns to listen to others, to nature, and even to silence, the more clearly reality begins to reveal itself. Because wisdom was never only about having answers. Sometimes it was simply about being quiet enough to finally hear them.